Welcome to part 2 of this of my project to make some models for the Liverpool Overhead Railway, in particular the carriage sheds at Herculaneum Dock, the original station for Herculaneum before this junction was put in. This is my model of the junction, which I showed you in the last video, and in this direction at the bottom part of the screen is where the new station was built. The old station was at the end of this short spur, and that's what I'll be modelling in Gmax. And this is the junction that takes the line across over the bridge and into the tunnel entrance heading for Dingle. And if you looked at the last video, you'll see that I was rather bemused by the fact that I couldn't connect the track up properly. And that's because, of course, what I was trying to do was wrong. I was doing it wrong. So here's our Liverpool Overhead Railway track, and just wanted to demonstrate how this works, this junction, because I will be releasing it eventually, along with when we do release the route. And essentially all you need to do is to put in track where it needs to go in order to create the junction, and the track height, spline height, is 5.2 meters for the Liverpool Overhead. So let's move that up, and of course it's not connecting up at the moment, and we want some non-third rail because we're going to put in some junctions. And then if we just look straight down and use the move track, we can bring those spline points in to where they're going to be needed. And at the moment I'm just sort of doing it by eye, because I'm going to straighten track as I go. And let's go back and put the other track in, which is going to need at least one spline point in the middle. It actually may require two in order to get the geometry right. Essentially what I'm doing with this is using the fixed track of the junction piece to force the geometry of the track in trains. So there we are. That's the two running lines, one going straight forward, one curving off. Well, we want obviously to fit the other one in, so that's a piece of. I keep the power rail, the third rail, the furthest away from the edge of the viaduct, keep it in the middle, just like I mentioned before with the say London Underground platforms. And let's just raise that one up, and we want a piece of, you can see up here I'm selecting the track that I need, the ordinary track with the third rail and the LOR track without the third rail, and I'm going to connect that up, and I think I can get away with clicking it there. Yes, I can. And I'm going to move that over, and I want to bring it in as close as is reasonable. The other thing to do then is to straighten the foot of the bottom of the turnout, and also I'm going to put another spline point in here parallel with this one. I'm going to try to anyway. I'm not getting very far. Insert spline point. Yes, I'm in the right place. Let's have a look. Doesn't want to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag that out. Now I'll do it over here. There we are. There we are. You're so sly, but so am I. It's all a mess at the moment, but that's okay. We're going to resolve that. So let's just take that over, move that one back to make a nice curve, and I'll just want to straighten this bit, and then I'll tidy that one up a bit more, maybe, just to make sure that the track looks okay. So that's third rail. There's a bit of a wiggle there, so let's move that one. It needs to come over here. I'm not worrying about the junction levers at the moment. I'll replace those with invisible junction levers in due course. And then the only other one then to do is to bring the track over from the other road, which is going to be supplying the other line of the carriage shed. Just move all those up in height, and let's just drag them into position. That one there, that one, bring it right up there, I think. And then this one, I want to try and fit, see if it'll just connect. Oh, no, oh. Made a mess. I should have held down the shift key. It's because this one here, if you can hear that complaining, should be there. There we are. Just bring that over. Just being a bit cack-handed about all this. And well, what I do is I'll insert a spline point here. Make sure it's at the right height. And then I'll just connect it up there. There we are. Now we just tidy this up, get into position, and this one especially, what I'm going to do is put another spline point in there and straighten that, and move that spline point over. Let's bring it in. That looks a bit messy, doesn't it? Just trying to work out why I've got a third rail coming along there. Let's move that out. And this one over. There we are. It was a very sharp turnout there. And that's how the junction is going to look. So there we are, just to show you, if you were watching part one, if you did watch part one of this, and that I had trouble beginning to do this, it was my own mistake, naturally enough. Pretty standard, I would say, that. Okay, so that now gives us the turnouts with the third rail. This isn't procedural track, and it won't be. So we're just going to have to live with that as Liverpool Overhead Railway third rail. There we are, and I'm going to save that as, I'm going to call it junction test, because eventually I'm going to use it to try out the carriage shed as well. Let me just leave it like that. So there we are, that gives us our line up to towards the tunnel at Dingle here, the two lines that go up to the tunnel at the Dingle, and the single line here which goes up to the carriage shed, which is this is now part two of how I'm going to build that. And these two lines run through Herculaneum station, and there is a crossover on the other end of Herculaneum station which allowed for carriage stock to come along to run the wrong way into the shed and correct way out of the shed, and then cross over and head down to Dingle. So there we are. So I'm going to close that and go into Gmax. Well, let's do that. And here's Gmax, and this I hope is familiar to you from the first part of the video which I'm doing, making these. And this, you may recall, is my spacing pieces, which are going to wrong way, and it's the height. This piece here, the lower one, gives me the top of rolling stock, and then the other piece gives me the top there, that line there. And there's only those two photographs to use, unfortunately. This is a piece of fixed track, 270 foot long, I think. So the first thing I'm going to do is to reduce this down to 200 feet. And so let's just get on with that. There's also some complications about the width of this of these carriage sheds. As you can see, the whole thing's grouped. So the first thing is ungroup it. And the next job I think is I keep trying to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to turn this because I was just in trains. And the first thing I'm going to do now is get this down to size. So it's going to be 200 feet. There's quite a few bits now I need to adjust. This was a number of pieces of viaduct. So it's 135 foot long, so I need that down to 100. This will of course affect the texture. And if we have a look at the texture, let's zoom in a bit, you can see the texture is texture correct. The texture is actually designed to give you those rivets and darker area either side of these vertical pieces which support the handrails and indeed provide the structure for the viaduct. So if I take that down to 100, and then I just have to continue doing that. But what I will need to do of course is go back and adjust the texture in due course. So I'm hoping this is making sense to you. If you're thinking of making stuff in Gmax for trains, then I'm hoping that this sort of video will show you that although many of the jobs are quite routine and repetitive even, especially when you're making alterations like this, you're taking a previous model and adjusting it down to whatever you want to produce. Nevertheless, it's by doing these fairly repetitive jobs that you end up with a model which looks far more complex than it actually is. And so it's all built up from relatively straightforward bits and pieces, simple meshes that when they're put together and then you texture them, of course, they do look a heck of a lot better. They look the bee's knees. And we'll see that in a minute when I go into Pierhead Station, because what I'm going to do is, having modelled some things already, I don't want to have to do it all again. There's no point in doing that. And also for the sake of consistency, I want to keep these all looking pretty much the same. And where's the upper part? The pieces that I'm doing at the moment are the upper and lower horizontal pieces of the side of the viaduct. The first pieces that I did on each side were the vertical panels. If we just go in a bit, you'll see what I mean. Come back a moment. If I swing this round, basically, if we come in a bit, you'll see there we've got a horizontal piece, and a vertical piece. Together that makes an I shape, like a capital I, letter I, with a horizontal top and bottom. And we've got a lot of other stuff here which we're going to lose. Because at the moment, of course, the poly count 26, that well, it just wouldn't go in. Trains would throw, at least my graphics card would throw a hissy fit for that. So I always try and be very careful, try and keep the number of polys down as much as possible. I'm just highlighting the attachment points there because I just want to hide them. I'm going to come back and move them in due course, but they're in the way at the moment. Now, what else can we alter? Can we lose? Well, one of the things that we can lose, or group of things that we can lose, are all the handrails, because they are clearly not in the... Let's have a look at those pictures again. The handrails stop. Okay, and the carriage shed sits on top of the horizontal top of the I girder, which either side of the viaduct, which forms the structure of the viaduct. So we can lose all of those. Let's lose those. And where else can we lose them? We can come in like that, and we can lose all of those. And also, of course, because it's 200, we can start losing the rather poly heavy, let's have a look at it, 36 for this extraordinary trackbed that was used. And you can see there, quite remarkable, semicircular, and that is a 5 foot, so they're each about 2.5 foot. That's what I've standardized on anyway. You have to make some concessions when you're modeling something like this, because they're simply far too complex. Most models are far too complex to reproduce precisely in trains. The poly count would be through the roof. So it's very nice to see these things rendered as images, but in practical terms for trains you can't use them like that. And we can lose these. These are the uprights along inside the girder. I see I've missed one there. Thought I'd done all of these, so let's just make sure I've got everything. Just collapse that. I'm not really explaining each of the jobs that I'm doing. Oh, that's interesting. That's an errant bit of mesh that I left. Huh. It was completely unnecessary. Oh, well, there you are. That's the way to put the poly count up, alright. And if we come in over here, I can lose all over this way. There we are. That's there the girder stops. And these pieces, which I think look quite effective with the texture, once I've got the texture sorted out and they actually line up again, those pieces give a 3D aspect to the girder. These here, and they're simply a box with 3 sections, with the top section. Let's have a look in a cross section here. These here, they're just 1, 2, well 5, sorry, I thought there were 3, 4. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, and just bent round. And that's only got 1, 2, 3 there, so I don't need it for that. Inside the viaduct itself. What else can we lose? Well, definitely we can lose some of the legs. So already we've dropped down to 17,332. So let's take out the supports that we don't need. And oops, took out too much. Took out part of the track bed as well. Well, actually that's the bit that we don't need anyway, so I can lose that. Huh. And you'll see from this that I've got track modelled all the way along, and that can be quite heavy as far as poly count is concerned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this like the junction piece which I showed you at the beginning of this video. In other words, I'm going to make 2 fixed track lengths, one at this end, one at the other, and one at each end, and that will eliminate all of those tracks, because you'll put the track spline in to make this. So I'm going to leave those at the moment. Shall I leave those? I'm just thinking the quickest way of doing this job. So always you're trying to cut corners on time with these. If I take those out, what I can do is I can merge one of my 5 foot sections. Think about it. Let's save this anyway. Always important to save your work. Keep saving it. Having saved it once, I'm going to save it again. So it's Herculaneum carriage sheds that we're looking for. It's only got the one there at the moment, so I'm going to give it version 1, copy 2, and save it. Always save 2 copies, because on the occasions when Gmax collapses, which it does on occasion, then you've got your work saved. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to open up my model of Pierhead Station in Gmax. Here it is, very complicated, and what I want to do is just take a couple of things from this. So I'm actually going to, what I could do is I could open up a second iteration of Gmax by just opening up the program a second time, so that you have multiple iterations of it open. And I'm going to, well, there we are, it's grouped, so that's all the attachment points. I'm going to just delete those. And what else have we got? We've got a shelter. Well, I'm going to delete that. What else have we got? The roof, take that out. Side stairs. Side stairs. What is he doing? He must be mad. Take that out. That out. No, we won't take that out. What we'll do there is we'll ungroup it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here and I'm going to take one of the windows from this. So this is a version before I split the whole station up into separate meshes in order to no, what I need to do is to group that. I'm just looking at that here. I'll start taking stuff away as quickly as I can. Because having made this whole station as a single piece, which you need to do in order to get all the proportions right, my next job then was to divide it up into those different groups, which became separate models and separate meshes, and then I reassembled them in the final version of the station. So this looks like I'm just being bonkers here, just doing this, but it's important just to, in many ways, just to maintain consistency. I've got a group there, and I've got a group there, so I've got to save myself a bit of time. I'm going to invert the selection, I'm going to delete everything, and here I'm going to ungroup this. What I want is the window, that's all I want, but I want the window with a bit of the, to be the same as the windows in Pierhead. So I think they're a bit longer in here. If we go other way, there we are, they're longer, but I think they might be double. I think they might be double versions like that, and I like those, so I'm going to keep that, and but I'm going to lose, I think some of the windows surround is going to have to go. Let's just take that all away at the moment, and the glass is gone as well. Is that a group? Yes it is. I'll group that, take that out. There we are, that's my window, and I'm going to group that, and I'll group this, and I'm going to give this then another name. I'm going to save it as I'm going to call it, I always end up with the word bits on the end, and there's attachment points, but I'm going to call it window and support bits. There we are. Okay. Let's go back to the carriage shed. Open this up, and I'm going to merge, or rather I'm going to, yeah, that's right, merge. Come right there, and then you've got to, it always irritates me that I've got to go through the around the houses in order to find what it is I want to merge. It's models, and it's under Liverpool Overhead, and there we are, and what do we call it now? Window and support bits. There we are. Open it. Give it a moment to find it. There we are. We want both groups, so we say all. That's okay. We want to. We're not worried about the same material name. We want you to use the existing material. It just doesn't always work, but it means it's reproduced up here again. I think we're still down to 3. Yeah, that's okay. Station. Not sure that I need station. Station may well be the window frame. I don't really want to bring in yet another texture just for the window frames. So let's have a quick look. They're certainly lighter. but I think I can probably get away with a grey on that, so I'm going to just move this along another way, and this one as well, and that's going to go towards that end on the assumption that this is going to be the wider end. So these are for the wider part of the carriage sheds. If we look here, you can see, come back, oh, you don't get any more, you can't turn it around. There's the conventional uprights for the viaduct, but about halfway along into this one we've got a pair there and a pair there, and I think a pair there and a pair there, and likewise there. So all in all there'll be three lots of these along the end here. But by having made them already, it makes life a little bit easier, and it gives some uniformity to the overall look of the model. Looking at the top-down version, all that yellow is the wacky semicircular track bed. Quite remarkable. And if we take this on the x-axis and move it over, it's going to be something like that, and I'm going to have to extend this over here, so I think that's probably more than the width of this second one, but we'll come back to that. The other thing I can do is I'm going to take away a lot of the track. I'm going to take all the track away on this, and I'm going to bring it back as 5-foot sections by merging one of my already modelled 5-foot sections of viaduct. So there's a lot of these. Take those out, and if we look down here, we're down to 11,500 polys, which is still big, and it's going to increase, but I'm just trying to prune out as much as I can get rid of at this stage, and we're down to 6,192, which is much more acceptable. It will go back up, and it will go back up because I'll be bringing in, I need to bring in 3 lots. Let's just check again, have a look at that. 1, 2, 3 of those doubles of these extra wide viaduct supports. There we are, that's those doubled viaduct supports that are used on Pierhead Station. So I recognise them straight away, and if we have a look again, I think this set needs to go over to about a 10-foot. It's early days really with positioning these, but at least it gives a, so make sure I've got all the bits. Yeah, I think I have. That's something I don't normally do. Managed to achieve, so we group it up, and it's at 22'6" at the moment, so if I take it down to 10 feet, move it over, and then we've got, let's have a look there, we've got about, okay, so this one obviously goes right at the end here. Let's just take that in. There we are, and we've still got a bit of track bed which I'm going to tidy up. And then we've got another one of these at about the, I think about the 90-foot position. And then we'll take another one of those. And you can see our polys are climbing again, but I'm just about to reduce them again. Take that out, and it's getting close. Make sure we've got all the bits out that we need out. So there we are. And they're about midway, I think. Yeah, it's an approximate midway between those. So we've got 10, 90, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 feet is where that needs to be. There we are. And that gives us the supports for our wider section of the carriage shed. And the only other complication here is that I think because there's an end piece there, that will actually be part of the viaduct side girder, which I shall add, which will go around there. Okay, so there we are. Good. Well, it doesn't look much like a carriage shed at the moment, so let's make a carriage shed. I'm going to keep those windows handy. We just move them out of the way. And next job, for those of you who watch the spacewalks, live spacewalks from NASA, this is like the glove check. There we are. So it's 1.2 at the moment, so 1.111. Yes, we'll save that. Just to remind you, what I'm aiming to do with these videos is just to show you how straightforward it is to build up what looks to be quite a complex model from relatively straightforward parts. And just looking again, let's go back to that other picture. Not that one always go the wrong way. So this is the bit I'm going to make now. So I'm going to try and create that curve, and I've got a bit of a lip on it. It looks like there's a guttering or something there. I'm unsure about this. If that's the same curve, it's higher, goes higher. Okay, so we're going to have a go. So I tend to use, when I'm doing something like this part of it, I would tend to use, rather than standard primitives, I would go into splines. And these are two-dimensional until you extrude them. But I think they're great because they're very flexible. And just another look at the picture. It seems to be sitting right on top there. So here we are, back to our spline. So it's sitting right on top there. Let's go in. Yeah, so I think it's about there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't even need to do that. That's 10 feet there. 13 feet, so that's 26 feet. So it's a rectangle first of all, and it's going to be 26 feet wide. And let's make sure it is 26 feet wide. Okay, and make sure it is centered. Oops. Centered. And position it in the center. Make sure we're at zeros. And we're going to drop it down to the level of the viaduct. And it leaves a little lip there, which I don't mind. I think that looks more realistic. And that's going to be the top of the entrance, and we're going to have just a narrow piece here, which I'm going to come back to. You know, that's going to be the opening, that whole bit there. Check again, make sure we're getting, yeah, so it really is that sort of, looking at from the track point of view, it's going to be that shape hole in there. What's he talking about, honestly? Right, all will be revealed. Turn our rectangle into an editable spline, and that gives us these 4 vertices. And what I need to know is where it begins to curve, and it begins to curve just about immediately from that horizontal there. So we'll first of all we'll take these down to that horizontal, and then just raise those same amount. How we looking? Oh, not far off, I think. Try a little higher. Maybe too much. Just trying to get a feel for it. So we're looking at that line there, that's the key. It's not bad. I think we're okay with that. I think that's close enough. And so we go back into this view, the front view, and that was 26 feet. So I could have just cloned that before I curved it, but I'll just do another one. And I reckon a couple of inches wide, thick, maybe 4 inches, probably more likely, isn't it, for that sort of structure. So if that was 26 feet, we take it down to 25'4", and then we just need to, well, we need to make sure it's centered and aligned, and then center it. There we go. And we just take this down, and I'm going to convert that into a spline, and I'm going to take those up. Okay, and this is when I realise perhaps it would have been better. No, it wouldn't. No, that's fine, because that's solid, isn't it? I was thinking if this was meant to be completely open, then I would have cloned the outer limit and reduced it down inwards. But this is going to be a rectangular opening. Okay, so let's make that, bring that down to our positioning box, which is what this is all about. Are we close there? Yes, we are. And here we need it down to our, well, actually it needs to come down to the green, which is the top of the viaduct girder. And that means we also need to adjust this one and bring those vertices up to the green so that we're in the correct position. Yeah. Just a bit. Don't think we are. Perhaps there. Right. Okay, now I'm going to, keeping that, I'm going to refine this outer one by putting in another point, and I'm going to pick that point up, I'm going to break it. So I split this editable spline open, and as ever it's moved the wrong way. There we are, and you can see it's actually opened. So I can move that right the way along to there and position it, and you're going to see that when I extrude this, I'm going to get my, join it and extrude it. It's going to create my carriage shed, except it's not going to create the whole carriage shed, it's only going to create the entrance. The other thing to do is to close these right up. Because the sides will incorporate the windows, therefore they have to be done separately. I can't just extrude this for 100 feet. You know, it would have no, sorry, I need to pick up that inner one. Take the segment out. And now if we have a look, so we've got some errant stuff poking out here. So what have we got there? What's there? Must be this. There we are. Take those handles back, and here otherwise it won't extrude into 3D correctly. Let's have a quick look. Yep, we're okay there, and we're very close to getting rid of those guiding boxes. We won't need those after this. So let's go back, and we've got our two pieces here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to join attach to this, and you'll see it's now actually all the same colour, but it's attached but it's not fully joined, so we need to make sure that these are welded, and because I've only selected the ones that are due to be welded directly together, I'm not worrying about the parameter of the weld distance. Let's lose our... Okay, let's go into the perspective view, and let's extrude it. Well, let's extrude it 100 feet, why not? I'm not going to leave it at 100 feet, of course, because that would just be a... But that's our carriage shed sitting on top. That's the small one. In fact, if I look at the picture, so it's going to be this one. In that we've got to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. 10 windows. So let's have a look how our windows look with that. They're going to be the right size. I'm going to go into side view and move the window, the grouped window, right, there we are, move the grouped window to there. I think 10 is going to be too many for this. These windows are too wide. I like to keep them because they are similar to they are from Pierhead, but they're not going to do the trick. They're going to be too wide. So rather than muck about creating new windows, which I suppose I could do, it wouldn't take that long, just ungroup them, and I'm going to reduce the width. Well, it's already down at 95, so I'm going to take it down a bit more to 80. And I'll do the same there, 80, and I'm not sure if I've already got that. That's if I can just get away with doing this, possibly. But first of all, what I need to do is move these. So let's move those over. So I'm just doing this by eye. I've got no scale measurements to work with. So if it looks right, it probably is right. That might do us. And if we zoom in to here, I tend to move it away and then move it back. Gives me a better visual fix. Oh, that actually works quite well. Yeah, I think we might get 10 of those in. Let's group it anyway and have a go. Okay, and of course it's still at the same height as they appear in Pierhead Station, so they're quite close to where the roof curves over. I'm happy enough to leave them in that position. So what we want to do now is to see how they look within. Well, as we've got 100 feet and 10 of them to go in, just dawned on me that if I position that at 5 feet, center it on 5 feet, let's make sure it's centered, and if I position it at 5 foot, it's centered, it's naught. Come on, -5 feet, there we are. And that's the only space in between. Let's have a look at the original. No, there's much more than that in between each window. So those windows are still too wide. So I'm going to ungroup it. I still like the idea of using them. take it down to 70% of its original width. Maybe even become smaller yet. Let's have a look. Where are they going to go? This one. Well, let's take it down, whatever it is, 80. No, we've already reduced it to 84. I'll take that down to 75 just to see. We're not far off. Probably about 10. That's that proportion there. It's almost the same width as the windows, so I think the windows are too tall as well. It's a bit of a nuisance, but worth doing. So Y, let's take it down to 90. That's not the one. There we are. It's the overall look that's key. Let's take that down 90. Now I'm going to reset all of these before I let's just reduce the width of those a bit more. I'll take it down to 65. And also drop it down another 10%. 80. Drop that down to 80. And take the width down to 70. Just about right. Let's have a look. That's what I'm tempted to do now, is lose the second window. What will that look like? Let's take a copy of that and move it along. And lose that. Take that back out to 100. And take its height back up to 100. Move that to the middle there. Well, it's still, I think it's still probably a bit too high. Maybe take the top, take it down to 90. Yes, I think that's it. Which means I just need to do some clever, well, it means I'm going to eliminate that completely and I'm going to lose that. What I'm going to do with those though is I'm going to move it out of the way just in case I find I need it. But that's going to be my window, and I'll make a new frame for it. And just to show how it's going to go, let's move it to -5 feet, and then I'm going to use the array here. 2D, I want 10 altogether, and on the x-axis I want to move them -10 feet, if that's going to work. No, it's gone the other way. Let's have a look at the array. -10, let's try that one. There we are. So that's going to be, no, we don't want to have a look here. So looking on the other side, those are all my windows. A lot of windows to clean there, and of course they were out from the body of the carriage shed at the moment, but I will bring them back in. So I'm going to pause this. This is the end of part 2. This is just showing you the first part of carriage shed. This original part is actually in the wrong place. It's going to have to be down this end, and that's where I'm going to pick it up for the next part of the of my videos, next group of my videos, and it will be the bigger. I'll do the bigger one as well, out to this width. Perhaps not as wide as that. I don't think it actually came out as wide as that. Looking back here, it's what maybe it did. Actually, comparing the width of the viaduct there by those two uprights and the width between those two pairs of uprights there. Yeah, maybe that is right. Maybe that is how wide it's got to come, because those were the uprights for the original station. Okay, so nothing really in its right place at the moment, but you're beginning to get an idea of how I'm approaching this. I'm not worrying about doing any texturing at this stage. I want to get these structures right first. So that's the end of the second part of this look at how I'm making the carriage shed for Herculaneum station on the Liverpool Overhead Railway. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been of use if you are a GMAX modeler and you see how I do things and the sort of techniques that I use, and to sort of speed things along and keep it as straightforward and as simple as possible to create the maximum detailed effect. Things will come together when we have more textures. Of course, the thing that I need to do now is to save, and save as Herculaneum carriage shed V version 1 number 2 copy 2. Let's save that. So that concludes the video. I hope you found it of interest. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any queries, please post them. I'll aim to answer them. And please subscribe to my channel. It's free. There's no obligation whatsoever. It's just nice to know that you're out there. And look out for part 3 when I continue making these carriage sheds for this remarkable overhead railway.